Welcome back. I'm sitting here with Jesse. Jesse, who are you?
My name's Jesse. I'm 22 and I live in Cape Town, South Africa. And we're going to have a bit of a. We've been having a family discussion for a little bit about just some of the police brutality and racism that's happening in the world right now. And Neil's really informed about it all. And I'm taking this opportunity to share that information with you while at the same time learn a bit myself. So,
And so,
Neil?
what we are doing right now is we've just had a very brutal situation with George Floyd take place in the United States, and there are riots taking place, there are looting that's taking place because temperatures are really running high. What do you understand of George Floyd?
So, what I'm confused about is that George Floyd the police were called because of something with a $20 bill, and the police arrived and he was placed under arrest, and then he didn't make it to the police station. He didn't make it in front of a judge. I mean, how does that happen in your system?
So the initial conversation is he had a $20 fake bill. We don't know. Was he handed a bill which was fake? Did he know it was fake? Or was it just something? I don't know what a fake bill is. But that is not the conversation. We will never know what George Floyd knew about that $20 bill because he's not alive to be able to say why he was in possession of that. And he's not alive because we have a systemic problem of racism within police departments. What do you understand of the racism in American police departments or in other parts of the world?
I mean, I stumbled upon this story because I'm obviously on social media and it's everywhere. And something that Will Smith said is racism hasn't increased, it's just being filmed. And that's terrifying because these issues have been happening for, I don't even know how many years.
A very, very long time.
Yeah,
It's been over 400 years of systemic racism. We had people come from this very continent, Africa, and taken forcefully on a ship to slave colonies. That was racism. That was capitalism of a different form. We are dealing with the consequences of this that is now playing out. Just one particular aspect happens to be the police brutality problem. I'm not saying all police are brutal, but this is what is in the attention right now, that we are dealing with these situations and we'll continue to deal with these situations.
But I mean, isn't there some form of process? Because these cops they came across as really aggressive, and I understand they need to be a figure of authority, but they don't need to intimidate someone and push them into the ground and put their
Well, things
knees on their necks.
things changed in a very significant way after 9/11, and what has happened is the militarization of police, the militarization of campus police. We have, and that's coming in the form of two ways. We have a lot of law enforcement who have served in these ongoing long-term wars, who are coming back from the war zones, and they're coming back looking for jobs, and they're getting hired in law enforcement, they're getting hired in immigration officers, they're getting hired as police officers, and they're coming in to a militarization police force. There are certain communities that have incredible military weapons. There's SWAT teams that were created for one-off or very specific difficult types of missions are becoming part of the norm. So the mindset of not innocent until proven guilty, which is the due process in the United States system with Miranda rights. It is you are guilty until I know you are innocent. And so this is where we are seeing this shift taking place of why these police are so aggressive. And yes, to be a police officer is a difficult job, it's a dangerous job. And a lot of police officers are coming, well, it's me against them. I've got to be safe. I have a family to take care of, so I've got to ensure that I am safe. But this is not how you do your job.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like it. That isn't the way it should work. I mean, I'm still very uninformed and I need more knowledge on it, but that just doesn't sit right. It shouldn't be this way. And I mean, another issue literally in the past week, another incident in the past week with Amy Cooper.
Let's hold off for a second before we go to Amy Cooper. And I just want to go back to Charleston, South Carolina, to April 2015, the Michael Slager case. And this is where a a police officer chased a black man for a broken taillight, and this black man did not pay his child support, so he ran. And Michael Slager ended up shooting him in the back multiple times, killed him, and then planted a gun and said this man threatened him or attacked him. And it wasn't until a bystander had seen this situation taking place and filmed it. And days later, after Michael Slager had made his statements that a black man ran away and shot at him, did the video surface that said, no, this is not what Michael Slager is saying. This is totally different. And video doesn't lie. Not when you're shooting it in the proper normal format and not manipulating and editing for what outcome you want. And Michael Slager has gotten 20 years in prison. And this is just one of many, many incidences of where, unfortunately, police have shot a black man. Now, there are a lot of other incidents that we're not going to talk about. It's not a one-way street. It's not only just what are police doing, it's the other side of the equation. But we do have a systemic problem of where young black men are dying at the hands of police, and that there is no proper investigations, there are no proper due process, there is no justice. We need to look, there cannot be one set of laws for one circumstance, a different set of laws for different circumstances. We need transparency.
Yeah, I mean, that's just your basic human right of you are innocent until proven guilty. These men and women and these people, they're not given the chance to prove their innocence. They're just killed on the streets. That's,
And
you
yes,
know, I'm sad, I'm scared, and I'm angry. This is not how it should work. If I were ever in a position where I was doing something and the police were called for me and I knew I was doing nothing wrong, I would like to be given the chance to explain that I'm doing nothing wrong without being forced to the floor and beaten,
Again,
shot, choked.
thought of guilty until proven
Yeah,
innocent.
but you know what? You take a look at me, and there's the question of race. This is my uncle. Completely different on the surface, but we're both human beings. We're both South Africans, and we would probably get treated very differently. And that's
which
wrong.
Which brings us now to the point you were going to make about Amy Cooper and
Yeah.
the incident that took place over there of how a black person is perceived.
It's ridiculous. I mean, she called it was something about they were in the park and there was a dog off a leash, or someone didn't pick up their dog poo.
Dog off the leash.
Dog off the leash. I mean, dog off the leash.
A
and-
jogger running by where he has every right to run by, and someone and addressing the fact that this woman's dog was not on a leash, and
Right.
she turns around.
So it wasn't. His surname was Cooper, no relation, but it wasn't his dog off the leash.
No,
it was
her dog. It was her dog off the leash.
So hang on, let me get this straight. So he said, "Hey, your dog's not on a leash," while he was running past.
That's right. Can you please put your dog on the leash?
Okay.
And then she put the dog on the leash, and that is when she started. I'm going to call the police. And
For why? He asked you to put your dog on a leash.
entitlement.
Was he armed? Was
No,
he?
he was not armed.
He was
just-
jogging.
he was just an everyday person, but he was a black man saying, please do this. And she turned around and says, you are threatening me. And this whole situation that took place of where we saw her prejudice come out. And now she's complaining right now that her life has been scrutinized.
But that's so hypocritical. His life has been scrutinized. He was on a jog.
No, every day in America, if you are black, you are under a different set of scrutiny than if you are white. We have a systemic problem of race. We have a conversation that has not fully taken place, that has to take place. I had a situation. Let me tell you a story.
Yeah, I'm very interested about this. You've
It
been
is-
hinting about this for a few days. But
So, right after 9/11, so this was somewhere around 2002, and in the United States we had this system of color coding, and the red level or orange level was the highest level of security that brought a different type of how you handle travel, and green was things were safe. So there were these different escalated levels, and I happened to be flying back from a business trip. I fly on a regular basis, and I belong to the US Air Club, which is now today the Admirals Club. And everybody in Charlotte Airport who works in what was then the US Air Club knew me because I was a guest. As a member, I used to bring guests into the club. I would be in there 2 or 3 times a week. And this particular day, I had landed, said hello to the girls at the front desk, went into the back of the club. The CNN was on, and they were talking that the threat level had just been escalated. And in the corporation that I was a part of, we had an agreement that if we got to a certain level of escalation in this, we do not fly commercial, we will fly private. I was on the last leg home, and by technicalities of the organization I was part of, a private jet should have come to fetch me. By the time a private jet was secured to fly me home 30 minutes, my flight was less than an hour from takeoff, 25 minutes in the air, I would be home. So I called the travel office, and I was talking to one of my partners, and I said, guys, I've got one more leg home. We don't need to right now adhere to our company policy. I'm not taking a private jet. I'm going to take my normal commercial flight, even though we are at an elevated threat level. I hung up the telephone. I continued doing whatever. I noticed two policemen walking into the club. I didn't pay any attention. My wife telephoned me, and I started the conversation with her, and I said, I'm on my way home. I'm going to be home in a couple of hours. I don't know if you saw the threat level has been elevated, and I'm coming in on a commercial flight. At which point the police walked up to me and asked me to hang up. And they said to me, we would like to see your ID. So I said, why? They said, well, we've got a complaint that there is a foreign man with an accent in the USA club talking about the threat levels, and we just got this complaint from a member in the club who telephoned us, and we have to investigate. And so I said, oh? He says, well, we heard you having that conversation. We realize that it is you who had the conversation because you do match the description. A black gentleman with an accent dressed this way in this part of the club. And I said, what? And he said, well, and we do know who you are because when we came in after we got this phone call, we did ask the girls who's in the back of the club, and they said, oh, Mr. Peterson is in the back of the club, and he's probably the only person at this time of the evening. He's one of our regulars. The police officers were told that. So they came back, they spotted me, they overheard the conversation I'm having with my wife, which is very clear. I've got nothing to hide. But the fact that somebody overheard my conversation, the same conversation I had with my wife, the same conversation I'm telling you, and called the police. This is a part of the problem in the United States. Everybody is suspicious, and it is like we're coming back into Nazi Germany. We're coming back into, oh my God, we've got to look around the corner because what if? Here is something fundamentally wrong. And this is the United States. This is not some dictatorship. This is not old apartheid South Africa. Quite frankly.
You grew up in that.
Yes.
Isn't this meant to be the first world?
What about free speech? What about innocent until proven guilty? Where does suspicion come in? And this is now the problem we're dealing with, why we have the situation that's taking place now in Minnesota. Why St. Paul's is on fire. Why are we having now riots? Because the conversation of race in the United States has not been dealt with.
Yeah, and I'm angry just thinking about it. You're not a bad guy. You're talking to your wife saying, hey, I'm going to be home. And someone wasn't minding their own business and was being alert, and they profiled. You got profiled.
I got profiled. And
that was like complete prejudice.
And who's to say that I didn't get thrown to the ground that night, a knee put on my throat? I may not have survived. Had I been George Floyd, had that been a similar situation, I could be dead. This is the risk.
The fact that the police were talking to you and there was a chance that they killed you, and most likely they wouldn't have gotten away with it, but it wouldn't have been the first, it wouldn't have been the last. That is wrong. That is just...
So we have to address the core issue of racism, not just in the United States, in South Africa too. And again, our history. Who's Steve Biko?
Yeah, activist. And we're not going to go too much into Steve Biko because there is just a whole other 2 to 3 hour piece on this. Every single South African knows who Steve Biko is. We're not sure who this is going to reach yet, but we'll put the name in. Maybe you can't get the spelling of my accent, but we'll put his name in the description.
And here is a man who also died at the hands of police brutality. So this is not
Go
something...
and have a look. It's really interesting. It's so much information, and it's mind expanding, really. It's
So
yeah.
Jesse, what are you going to do as the next generation? What are you going to do to help solve these problems?
I mean, immediately we want to jump on social media, tweet, Instagram, Facebook, repost, and
Unfortunately,
that doesn't.
doesn't solve the problem. And
I mean, it helps. It's not wrong.
awareness. It
It's
is
not wrong to
information.
spread awareness, but let's put some information out there. Let's.
So let me turn this question. You're a young South African. Have you voted?
At the first time I was eligible to vote, I voted.
So if we're going to solve this problem, we have to do multiple things. We have to have a conversation about race. We have to have a conversation about transparency. We have to have a conversation about justice. We have to have a conversation about your actions count. And one of those actions are in the United States, and as an American citizen, as a dual citizen and a citizen of the world, I understand how these processes work. In the United States, we have the choice to vote for a sheriff, to vote for a prosecutor, to vote for a mayor, all the way up to vote for the President of the United States. If you're not informed about who you are voting for, if you don't like what the system is, don't go down and burn down your neighborhood. Yes, you can protest, but do not riot. Be peaceful, but make your vote count by showing up at the polls, showing up and deciding, I don't like what's happened in this particular town because of how that police chief has conducted his job. In some places, the police chief can be voted in or voted out. If you don't vote, you can't be a part of the conversation. If you don't vote for your mayor, if you don't vote for the prosecutor, wherever you're eligible to cast a vote, this is the beginning of taking the conversation and holding people accountable. That police officer reports to somebody. That somebody that he reports to, his chief of police, reports to somebody. In this hierarchical structure is a democratic system that we have to use. And we have to vote for people who are sane, who are sound of mind, who have your interest. If we look at the previous elections, at the lack of apathy that happened in the United States and in South Africa, people don't vote.
I mean, it's actually terrifying if you look at the statistics, the number of young people that actually showed up and voted in all over the world, really. The number of people that are eligible to vote in my generation that don't vote. I mean, we can make a real difference. We don't have to just tweet about it, Instagram about it. We can tweet and Instagram that we went and voted. And, let's do a lift club to the polls. Let's do whatever we can to get as many people as possible to the polls to vote whenever we can.
And now, because of these challenges becoming so vocal in the mainstream, in our social media, there is no excuse. And I'm going to repeat, there is no excuse. If you're a black man, if you are a woman, if you are a Latino, whoever you are,
whatever you identify
as, if you want change, you've got to get out there and vote. If you are a white woman who doesn't believe in what Amy Cooper has done, you've got to get out there and vote. If you want to fight racism, if you want to fight prejudice, if you want to fight injustice, it begins with being informed and choosing people to vote for. So Jesse, it's your job as the next generation. Get out there and vote and bring your friends to the polls.
Yeah.